Living with a chronic respiratory condition doesn't mean giving up the things you love to do. At Blue Zone Health, we're here to help you breathe easier and rebuild your strength. Our online cardiopulmonary rehab program offers tailored exercises, self-management training, and expert support from certified respiratory therapists. Accessible anytime, it's designed to reduce breathlessness, improve lung function, and empower you, all while connecting you with a supportive community. Visit bluezone.health and take the first step towards stronger lungs and a healthier future. Blue Zone Health. Breathe better, live better.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Cozy Lung Lounge. I'm here with Kelly, Gina, and Phyllis today. We're excited to have you on, Phyllis.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, Phyllis DiLorenzo is a retired social worker, and she was also diagnosed with COPD 9 years ago. Since then, she's become a major advocate within the COPD community. She works alongside friends and colleagues at the COPD Foundation with both patients and staff to help foster awareness, advocacy, and support for the COPD community. So outside of work, she also loves to spend quality time with her family as well as loves cooking. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. So, yeah, I was diagnosed with COPD 9 years ago. However, at that time, I was not diagnosed through spirometry, and my journey to spirometry was a 15-month journey. Unfortunately,
Wow.
yeah, I had just been given a rescue inhaler, albuterol Ventolin, from my primary care doctor and sent home. And I was consistently every day just short of breath and struggling, having a hard time doing my daily routine without becoming severely short of breath. Finally, after a few ER visits, while doing a nebulizer treatment, I could not breathe while doing the treatment, and I collapsed on the floor. My partner called 911, and I was hospitalized for 4 days and put on a BiPAP for 3 days. So since then, I was referred to a pulmonologist immediately for spirometry and finally given proper maintenance inhalers. And they made such a difference in my life, in my daily life, that it was like night and day. So since then, I had begun to do my own research, saying, you know something, I think I need to get more involved, sort of on top of what's going on with my body, what's going on with my lungs. So I sought out information, and I was looking at the American Lung Association and the COPD Foundation and different information from Mayo Clinic and so forth, educating myself. And I am so glad that I did. I had never understood before the importance of being an informed patient. It is come to me not only from the beginning of my diagnosis and struggling to get a proper, where are you in your COPD journey in terms of staging? But just recently, it came to me that I had a CT scan for lung cancer. And I said to myself, well, if that had showed anything significant, surely my primary care would have discussed it with me. I recently went to see a specialist pulmonologist, and he asked to see a copy of the scan. And it was him, not my primary care, who brought up the fact that there was something, a nodule that needs to be watched. And this scan was done 3 years ago.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
said, yeah. I said, oh my, here we go again. So I said, yeah, I really need to be on top of everything. And, sometimes it's exhausting because you're scheduling visits for this and that, to try and keep yourself as healthy as possible, and having to be aware of every little thing that is going on. If my primary care had only allowed access to my medical records through a My Chart or something, but no.
To recap, Phyllis, if I may, so you
Yes.
felt like something was off with your breathing. You went to your doctor, primary care, I'll assume, and they gave you an inhaler and said, just use this as needed.
Right.
So then you were taking this inhaler. Were you on an inhaler, an MDI, or did they send you home with a liquid albuterol
I was
nebulizer?
given a Ventolin MDI, what
MDI.
we call a rescue inhaler. It's a short-acting bronchodilator.
So there you were trying to rescue yourself, and you ended up falling on the floor. It wasn't
Right.
doing it till you got to the hospital when they finally granted you a pulmonologist who said, let's back up a little bit.
Exactly.
So I wish I could say, wow, that's uncommon, but it's unfortunate. That's very common.
Yes, it's very unfortunate. I had no idea how common that was. So I was very surprised, the importance of being educated and informed as you can be, but not everyone is capable of doing that, unfortunately. So I feel I empathize for new patients who, really don't know anything about lung disease and COPD. I really can empathize with that. And I try to bring awareness about what COPD is, how one might be at risk for it, and when you have it, what are ways that we can manage our daily lives so that we can make things a little easier on ourselves. We can avoid that shortness of breath. We hopefully can slow down the progression of COPD. What are the tools available to us? Well, one of the things that I find most helpful is pulmonary rehab. And as we know, when we came through the COVID pandemic, many physical pulmonary rehab, cardiopulmonary rehab centers closed their doors, and many have failed to reopen, leaving a lot of patients in the lurch. Virtual pulmonary rehab came about in that time. Everyone was doing telehealth, and virtual pulmonary rehab started coming about. I think that has pros and cons. I think that pulmonary rehab is wonderful, but I also think that pulmonary rehab needs to be monitored. Patients need to be monitored so that they can exercise safely and they're not getting themselves into trouble. And it can be easy to do, especially for patients who have not exercised for some time and need to build up their tolerance. I know it was true for myself and it continues to be. So I try to stay as active as I can, keep myself informed.
Phyllis, you said you love pulmonary rehab and monitored. I know that you build a lot of relationships in pulmonary rehab. How did your diagnosis and health journey affect your relationship with family and friends?
With family and friends, I'm very fortunate in that my family is knowledgeable and supportive, extremely supportive. The only thing that I find is that I tend to not want to reach out when I'm not feeling that well. I'll say, oh, I'm fine, Why haven't I heard from you? I called you, you didn't call me back. Well, I was in a funk and I didn't want to, transmit that to you. So that's me. And I'm trying to be a little better at letting people help me, family included.
What are some of the things that you find helpful when you ask them? What are some things that they can do for you if you would let them?
They can slow down if we're out walking, slow down so that I don't feel I have to rush and keep up, so I don't lose sight of them. They have learned to do that. Yes, they've learned to do that very well. And I've learned to be more accepting. There are times when my family will say, well, let's get a cab. And I'll say, no, it's fine. We can walk. We're in the city in Manhattan. I'm like, okay, I can walk. No, it's okay. We can take a cab for 5 blocks. It's okay. I've learned to accept that when it's needed. It's not always needed, but I've learned to accept the help. I went to DC recently in March for our COPD foundation, Impact 2025, where we bring our policy asks to our representatives. And on that day, between the weather and some maybe beginning respiratory infection, a cold or whatever, I couldn't navigate, and I allowed my fellow advocate to wheel me in a wheelchair, which was the first time, I had ever done that. And it felt strange, but I remember one of my friends saying to me, thank you for letting us help you. And
Absolutely.
I could accept that. So yeah.
Good for you for asking for help, and that way you could get everything done you wanted to do that day. And people are happy to help. I talk to all kinds of family members who say, we're happy to do whatever our family member wants. They just don't ask, and we don't know what to ask. Hi, I'm Kelly, a registered respiratory therapist with Blue Zone Health. Do you feel breathless much of the time? Are you unsure of how to manage your breathlessness? Is it keeping you from doing all the things that you would like to do? I'm here to help you learn to work with your healthcare team to come up with a plan that will work for you. There are lots of tools, tips, and tricks and breathing exercises that you can do now that will help you breathe easier and more effectively. I look forward to joining you on this journey and empowering you to breathe better.
What's one thing that you kind of wish you had known as you were getting started with your health journey and when you first got diagnosed?
What I wish I had known when I was first diagnosed is the importance of support, of finding that support, joining different support groups, whether it be with the foundation or other agencies. Even if we can't be in person, we can meet on Zoom. It's it's so helpful. It's amazing. Without my fellow advocates and group members, I would be lost. I've learned so much from them and I get so much support. We support each other, and it's really like having another family.
So you're in the patient support groups. That's a very good way to get with people, but you don't have to go out of your house. You don't get short of breath. You're not getting any germs. And it's very convenient to get on it and find those patients. So those friends and colleagues.
Right.
And Phyllis, how would you tell others, some newcomers to the table, if you will? So you said you got a lot of support and advice and the support groups and things like that, but anybody can go into any Facebook forum and get all the advice they ever never wanted.
Yeah.
How would you help people distinguish between what's good, solid advice and support and what should they just kind of not pay attention to?
Well, stay away from Dr. Google. Dr. Google will often tell you erroneous things that I don't even know where some of these things come from, like a 5-year life expectancy for COPD. That was one of the first things I remember encountering.
Oh no.
Yeah. So there's that. I think you need to know who your sources are. Who are they? Do they have medical degrees? If not, is their material reviewed by medical professionals? Do a little digging and research. I was very fortunate as a child that my grandmother would bring me to the huge library in Manhattan on 42nd Street and Fifth Avenue. And she would teach me how to research. She was doing her own genealogy research. And she would teach me how to use the card catalog at that time. And yeah, and it was just a wonderful experience. But learning to know how to find information, how to find good sources can take some time. But what I can say to other patients is places like the COPD Foundation, the American Lung Association, the CDC, the National Institutes of Health, safe sources. Start from there, and as you learn, you may be able to branch out through links provided through these agencies, but that's where I would tell patients to look for information first.
That is great advice. Get to a trustworthy source. And then I wanted to ask you, what advice would you give others going through a similar health concern? In other words, somebody's feeling a little bit of short of breath and you find out that they're going to go to their primary care doctor. So what advice would you give somebody?
I would say, yes, discuss it with your primary care doctor. However, if you feel you're not being heard, that your issue is not being fully addressed to your satisfaction, keep pushing. Keep pushing. Say, well, maybe don't you think I should have this checked out? Maybe there is something going on. Talk about your medical history. Talk about your smoking history. Talk about whatever environmental exposures you may have had with your doctor. These are things that your doctor should be aware of, but sometimes, I've had the experience of things getting missed. So, yeah.
Well, and you mentioned too that you had a test done not until later, and it took a long time for them to review it, and you didn't have access to my chart or anything to look at. And that may have been because if you had a diagnosis that they would rather discuss with you, they don't want to scare you. They don't want you opening your My Chart while you're by yourself and going, a nodule, oh my God, but doctors are pressured to see a whole lot of patients now. And sometimes it's unfortunate. And I would remind people, if you had a test done, even if you don't know what it was, write it down. And if you haven't heard back, call. Just keep calling and saying, I had this test done and I want to know the results. And just keep calling. It's so easy. We go, they run all these tests, we don't know what they are, and then we forget what did, and then they haven't called me, so it must have been okay.
Right.
But really, as you stated, you got to stay on top of it.
Yeah, the onus really is on the patient, unfortunately. Yeah, I've learned my lesson now.
Now, Phyllis, so as a respiratory therapist, I have lots of tools in my toolbox. I know all of the tools and gadgets. And I would say COPD, you quit smoking, you take the right inhalers, oxygen if you need it, exercise if you need it. I've heard you talk a lot about support and people. Were there any other gadgets that you found really helpful that that might be useful for others?
Well, one of my favorite things is a nebulizer. I love my nebulizer. I really feel that it opens me up better than anything else. That's number one. Number two, I also use the physio at times. I had RSV, unfortunately. I did not get the vaccine because I was in a clinical trial study for the vaccine and drew the lottery ticket of the placebo. So yeah, I managed to contract RSV, and that air physio was so helpful because the mucus with RSV was relentless. And yeah.
Now, I'm not familiar with the Air Physio brand. Is that a vibrating device to help with the mucus, like a flutter valve or an aerobica or
Yes, it's very much like an aerobica. Yes. Yeah, I find those helpful. I don't use them on a daily basis, but whenever I have a lot of mucus with a respiratory infection, yeah, very helpful.
Very good.
Well, since you've started all your work with the COPD Foundation, I just wanted to ask, how did you get involved with that? And how would you recommend others who may be dealing with COPD getting involved within that organization?
How I got involved with the COPD Foundation was the one gift, the really wonderful gift that Facebook gave to me. I happened to run into another COPD support group on Facebook who actually happened to have some knowledgeable patients there who were, being very supportive with each other and beginning communicating with them. They said, well, Phyllis, you really should check out the COPD Foundation. And I did go to the site and I basically just looked and read things and attended meetings for about a year before I decided to get involved. By that time, I said to myself, yes, I have vetted these people. They're the real deal. I like what they're doing. So, yeah.
I'll vouch for that. I'm also a COPD Foundation captain here in Illinois.
Yes.
And I see Phyllis on our support groups sometimes. I like to hang out with the support
Aren't
group.
they great?
Well, that's really awesome. Well, do you have anything else, that you feel like is really important to share or to tell the people who are listening?
Well, I would say get yourself a support group. That's number one. Don't be afraid to discuss things with your doctor. Try to keep yourself informed as possible. Stay on top of your test results. Pulmonary rehab, so important. really is. It's amazing how quickly one can backslide if you're not keeping up with it. And I found when RSV had me knocked down for a while, for about 3 months, it took me quite some time to build up and feel like myself again. And pulmonary rehab helped me get through that. It's amazing. So, yeah. And if you are prescribed inhalers, if you're prescribed oxygen, discuss how you are supposed to use them with your doctor. If you're using inhalers, does your doctor review with you, or a respiratory therapist review with you your use of them? Because sometimes we get lazy with things. We think we know what we're doing. Oh, I've been doing this forever. I know how to do it. Meanwhile, you're distracted and you're not really paying attention to what you're doing. So slow down, pay attention to what you're doing with your inhalers. If you're on oxygen, make sure that you have your oximeters, you have your batteries, they're in working order, you're checking that, and, not obsessively, but when something is off, or you're feeling very short of breath. Yeah.
Well, do you ladies have any other questions to ask of her?
I think I covered what I wanted to ask. Thank you, Phyllis.
Phyllis, do you know, you want to give us a brief overview of the SOAR Act and why it's important?
Aha! The SOAR Act has just been reintroduced, and it's been co-sponsored by two senators, I believe. And we need to keep the heat on. I think we all know we're in perilous times in healthcare across the board here. We need to keep the pressure on. We need to get the SOAR Act passed, the Supplemental Oxygen Access Reform Bill. We just got a Senate number, I forget what it, SR something. Anyway, please, if you can, get the word out there. Call your senator, call your congressman, and have them support the SOAR Act. So important for anyone who has to use supplemental oxygen. Thanks for the reminder.
I just
You're
got an
welcome.
email the other day from the American Association of Respiratory Care saying, please contact your Congress people and let them know to support this.
Yeah, very important.
I was able yesterday to stop by a representative's office here in my local district and just briefly talked with her, introduced myself as a resource, and if there was anything she needed for lung patients, that I'm in the community and I'm happy to talk with her. But just stopping by, those little open houses are really important.
Right. That's great. Thanks so much.
Amy, I just had
Love
an
it.
idea. When we post this, we should post the links for people. You know how they have those links, how to find your senator, how to find your congressman, and then it's a one-click, here's a letter that's pre-done.
Mhm. Yeah, wonderful.
Let's post
That would be
that
a good
with the
idea.
podcast.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's great.
Will do.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Phyllis, for the work that you do within the pulmonary world. It's so important to have people, especially COPD patients and other pulmonary patients, to be active and really show why these things are so important.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about a COPD journey.
Absolutely. Well, thank everybody for being here on the Cozy Lung Lounge. And I'm Amy, and I'm signing out.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hi, friends. This episode of the Cozy Lung Lounge is brought to you by Hootenanny Joy, where your health and wellness take center stage. At Hootenanny Joy, we know how overwhelming it can be to stay on top of your health, especially when life gets busy or chronic illness adds challenges. That's why we've created self-study programs designed to meet you right where you are. These programs are simple, flexible, and packed with tools to help you thrive. And they come with something extra, access to a live health coach. That's me, to guide you every step of the way. Whether it's improving your sleep, learning to nourish your body, or managing stress, our programs combine proven science with practical, real-life strategies. You can work at your own pace, get the answers you need during coaching sessions, and feel confident you're making progress. Ready to take that first step? Visit hootenannyjoy.com to explore the programs and choose the one that fits your journey best. Hoot Nanny Joy, because your health deserves a little joy.